The world, sadly, is full of energy vampires. You know the ones, those individuals who seem to suck the energy from whoever they are around. These are the people who not only drain the energy of others, but are unsupportive and difficult people to be around, even at the best of times. In this video, we're going to tell you how to spot these toxic energy vampires so you can take steps to prevent them from coming into your life to begin with. So let's get into it with the first type of toxic energy vampire on our list. Number 1. The conversational narcissist. Have you ever had a conversation with someone who constantly interrupts you, or someone who never seems to let you get a word in edgeways? Conversational narcissistic people love to talk about themselves, even if it's just to hear their own voice. They rarely ask the other person questions, and they don't care to hear the answer. And when they do, they don't even bother waiting for a response. If they get called out on this behavior, they won't change. Instead, they'll just look for someone else to satisfy their conversational narcissism. In summary, they are simply not interested in what others have to say. Here are some ways you can recognize this personality type. The conversation is one-sided. Conversational narcissists cannot deviate from their own verbal onslaught for enough time to fully engage others in conversation. Talking to them is never a mutually beneficial experience, it just becomes a one-sided monologue, feeling as if you are being talked at rather than being talked to. Conversational narcissistic people often arbitrarily interrupt in the middle of a conversation, even when the other person is midway through their own sentence. While at a first glance it may seem like they're cutting in because they're merely being helpful, excitably relating to what you're saying, or to share their own experiences, it becomes increasingly obvious that this conversation isn't about you at all, it's about them. They talk all the time. Because narcissistic people are constantly looking for recognition from their audience, their incessant need to talk will sound like a performance rather than a conversation. They usually attempt to portray themselves as very smart, special, knowledgeable, and intuitive. However, their never-ending chatter is hugely different from that of a naturally chatty and extroverted person. Those who are simply natural chatterboxes tend to have a high level of self-awareness, and they have no problem admitting that they talk too much. While conversational narcissistic types don't have the ability to recognize that they've hijacked the conversation. They are not interested in anything else. If they are no longer able to talk about themselves, or if the other person isn't talking about them, the narcissist is no longer interested in the conversation. They may seem visibly uncomfortable, bored, or even contemptuous when other people are talking. The next type of toxic individual to avoid is the one with the compulsive obsessive personality. A person with a compulsive obsessive personality is someone who wants to control everything and everyone around them. If you have a relationship with this type of person, they are likely to want to control not only what you do, but what you say and even what you think. They blow up when you don't agree with them and won't let things drop until you eventually agree that they're right, or do what they say. In a romantic relationship, this person won't give you space and harasses you until you conform to their perspective or desires. People with controlling compulsive personalities often have a full arsenal of tools used to dominate their partners, whether that's consciously or subconsciously. Often, the emotional manipulation they employ is so complex that the person being manipulated often believes they are in fact the ones in the driving seat and are blissfully unaware that they are the ones being controlled. You need to be wary of these individuals because their aim is to steal your emotional and mental freedom, so that you end up depending solely on them. So, rid them from your life as soon as you can. You'll thank yourself later. Here are some signs to recognize these expert manipulators. They isolate you from friends and family. It may start very subtly, but this is often the first step for an obsessive-compulsive personality. There may be times when they complain about how often you talk to your family on the phone. Then suddenly they don't approve of your best friend and don't think you should hang out with them anymore. Their goal is to deprive you of the supportive relationships that enable you to see the truth, preventing the narcissist from exerting full control and giving you the strength to walk away from them. Chronic criticism, even for the little things. Criticism, like isolation, also starts gradually. Even if you are criticized just for small things, if it becomes the constant dynamic of your relationship, then it becomes difficult for you to feel that you are loved and respected. Over time, the narcissist becomes overly jealous, accusatory, and paranoid. In addition, the continuous criticism begins to break you down and eventually may prevent you from standing up for yourself. The third personality type you should steer clear of is the permanent victim, or in other words, the victim personality. This one is a little more difficult to spot because we tend to initially identify with this person and the difficulties they experience. But as time goes on, you start to realize that they are always in a situation where they need help for something. Additionally, victim types tend to actively avoid personal responsibilities by magnifying every single hurdle and portraying them as impossible to overcome. Difficult situations are not seen as an opportunity to learn something new or develop their skills, but instead they believe that obstacles merely exist to shatter their dreams. People with victim personalities typically try to bring you down with them by insisting that you take care of them, help them, and take action to solve their problems. Signs that you can use to recognize those with victim personalities. Continuous transfer of responsibility. This includes blaming others, always finding excuses, and never taking responsibility or holding themselves accountable. They are not looking for real core solutions. They show little interest in changing or adopting a different perspective. They will often refuse genuine help and may seem to only be interested in feeling sorry for themselves. People with a victim mentality can internalize the negative messages implied by the challenges they face. The feeling of being a victim can contribute to negative self-beliefs such as, "Bad things always happen to me. I can't change anything, so why try? I deserve the bad things that happen to me. Nobody cares about me or my problems." The fourth type of person to stay away from is the envious person. For the envious man, the grass is always greener on the other side. Even if something great happens to an envious person, for them it's never enough. This is because they measure their luck against the world rather than looking inwards. And let's face it, no matter who we are, we can always find someone who we consider luckier or who has a better life than us. Spending too much time around envious people is dangerous because they encourage you to underestimate your own performance. Pay attention to the following signs to recognize the envious personality type. Their energy changes when you become the center of attention. The envious type doesn't typically hurt others intentionally and will probably treat you very warmly in general. However, this can change at the drop of a hat when you become the center of positive attention. At such times, when everyone enthusiastically compliments or congratulates you, the envious person suddenly becomes cold and emotionless or becomes annoyed and impatient. They question your intelligence, abilities, and talents. It can be a characteristic of such people that they criticize personal traits of their victim that are totally unrelated to what they envy. An envious personality who is unable to find legitimate flaws in his target will instead try to humiliate them. They belittle your actions but copy them. An ironic feature of those who are prone to envy is that they often copy the exact same things they criticize in the person they are envious of. They crave the same recognition as their target, so will emulate the things they do successfully, whilst at the same time belittling their methods. The next negative personality type is a manipulative magician, and they are usually difficult to recognize. This is the manipulative personality. Manipulative people suck time and energy out of your life, usually under the mask of friendship. The fact that we see them as friends is what can make this type especially difficult to recognize. Like any true friend, they know your likes and dislikes, what makes you happy and what you find funny. The difference being is that this information is used by the manipulator as part of a hidden plan. Manipulative people always want something from you, and they will do anything to win you over and use it for their own benefit. It may be difficult to recognize them, but here are some signs to look out for. Everything is all about them. These master manipulators believe that most situations and relationships are all about them, and they give no importance to the opinions or thoughts of others. Manipulative people don't tend to question themselves or think they're ever at fault. They'll always shift the blame to someone else. They do not respect boundaries. Manipulators relentlessly strive for what they want and don't care who gets hurt in the process. Do you think they care if they invade your personal space? Of course not. They either don't understand what boundaries are or just couldn't care less. They point the finger. This type of personality avoids taking responsibility for their own behavior by blaming others. It's not that they don't get the concept of responsibility. They understand it very well. But a manipulative person sees nothing wrong in refusing to be accountable for their actions, even if at the same time berating you if you don't take responsibility for yours. Ultimately, they are only out for themselves and their own needs and don't give a damn about yours. Do as they say, not as they do. Manipulators are most easily recognized for how they act. What a person says and what they do can be two hugely different things. Manipulative people are the biggest hypocrites, as they usually try to get their own way in a manner that enables them to do the exact opposite of that very thing. The last personality trait we're going to talk about today is the arrogant type. Arrogance is a trait that is often praised and rewarded by society, especially in areas such as politics and business. We often think of successful people as the ones who will do anything to get to the top. By the same token, arrogant people are far more preoccupied with getting ahead in their life than their relationships with other people. Arrogance is a form of false self-confidence and is often a facade for uncertainty and doubt. According to university research, arrogance is associated with a multitude of workplace problems. Contrary to popular belief, arrogant people tend to perform lower in the workplace, as well as being more insecure and having more cognitive disorders than the average person. Arrogant types are easy to recognize but difficult to deal with. Here are some tips for coping with an arrogant personality. Understand that you can't fix them. The need for superiority is deeply rooted within this person and stems from several places, such as low self-esteem, an unquenchable desire for praise, or a lack of empathy. Their childhood probably played a big part in how they turned out later in life, so trying to change them is likely to be futile. Accept that they will always feel superior. An arrogant type suffers from a deep-seated issue that goes far beyond you. However, it's important to realize that accepting their sense of superiority doesn't mean that you must feel inferior. Instead, treat it as a game in which you can refuse to play. Be wary of the arrogant type. If you do decide to react to the arrogant type, do so compassionately and with as much love as possible. Arrogant people can easily bring out the worst in someone and provoke them to lose control. Be aware of your reactions and don't let your tempers take over. Play the game according to your own rules instead of playing by theirs, and don't forget to always stay true to yourself. There are so many types of toxic personalities that we are unable to cover them all in this one video. But if you enjoyed today's topic, head over to our channel to watch our video on 10 signs of an evil person. Make sure you click that like button and subscribe to our channel to make sure you don't miss our next uploads.